Hey y'all, welcome back to the Sovereign Sisters podcast. It's me, Infinite C,
and the Sovereigness.
And we're back with part 2, y'all. So we left off last time, or our podcast together from a couple days ago, where we were talking about the new moon in Libra.
Mm-hmm.
We were the new moon, right? It was the new
moon. It was a full moon.
It was a full moon in Libra.
Right.
We were talking about evolution. We were talking about y'all go watch the podcast, okay?
Right.
And then you'll know what we were talking about. We were talking about a couple different things, a bunch of different stuff. And so we just wanted to come back on here and just kind of follow up with what we were talking about before. And we left off on, I guess, the idea of evolution and how human beings, right, are so, I'll say, egotistical or so wrapped up in themselves that we think that we're the only things that can evolve, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's not necessarily true, because if that's so, right, if humans are the only things that can evolve, then what is God? Like, does that make sense?
That's a whole topic in itself.
Because like, right?
That's a whole topic in itself.
I don't know. It's weird to me that we think that only we can progress and evolve and all these things. It's like everything around us is constantly evolving. Like evolution happens in nature all the time. It happens in the planets. It happens everywhere. And so I want you to talk about that a little bit. You can elaborate, because you were kind of going off, I feel like, on that last segment. So
well, before I even go on that, like while we're on the topic of what is God, because like as soon as you said that, it reminded me of a conversation that we had a few weeks ago where we were talking about, I don't know if you are comfortable talking about this, but how you weren't necessarily in this space where you didn't feel like you could refer to yourself as a goddess or God or godlike. Mm-hmm. And I was saying that everything is of God, right? Like, and so that also ties into evolution. But even when you're feeling low, even when you're feeling mad, sad, those are all different energies of God. We would not be able to feel those or be any of that if it wasn't, right? The source is, or source, divine, God, however you want to refer to the Most High, is the creator of all. So anger, bitterness, envy, these are all different. And I know people want to be like, no, this is not of God. It is. It's all, you can't say that God is only one thing that you're comfortable with it being. And that goes back into evolution, because humans are part of the animal kingdom and everybody wants to humanize God, another egotistical thing with humans. We want to humanize God so bad because it makes God relatable to us. But God created animals. God created the ocean. God created a rock you probably wanted to. God created the brick and the bat that you bust the window out of somebody's car.
Okay, Jasmine Sullivan.
I'm just saying everything is of God, right? So how can you say God is a he, a she, a humanized version? I mean, if that's the case, then that's where my term goddess comes from. God is comes from. God is within all of us, no matter where we are. It's in our journey. God is within all of us, and that's when we're mad. That's when we're sad. It's just all different types of energy that is of God, and it would not be possible for us to feel or be any of that if it wasn't some portion of source, God, divine. I don't really know what people want to call God, but
I don't know. What do you call God?
I call God the divine, but also I'll say source or the Most High. That's Most High.
Same.
So, but I feel like the word God is a lot, like it's easier for people to tag to the Most High because it's so close to good. And so they like to say God, right? And then they like to associate the devil with evil. So good and evil, God and devil, but it's all God created the quote unquote devil. So I'm just saying, it's all relative.
A part of it.
Right. I'm like,
it's all encompassing. It's all encompassing.
Exactly.
Yeah. I definitely feel that.
Yeah. So it just kind of goes with what we were saying about evolution. Like, yes, God created us, or the Most High created us, but the Most High also created everything. So if we can evolve and we are a creation of the Most High, everything that the Most High created can evolve, has the ability to evolve, or simply deconstruct. Sometimes the ego has to die. Sometimes you have a completely different, I don't want to say you don't degrade yourself, or you're not like downgrading as much as it is deconstructing to be built back up or made brand new, or to become something better than what you were previously. I wouldn't say that it's so much of a downgrade as it is like a deconstruction. Does that make sense? Or okay.
It does. No, it does. I think it could look like a downgrade. It could look like the loss of something. It could look like, like you're losing out. It can look, anything could, like, it can look horrible. It can look like the most tumultuous time in your life, and it could be the biggest blessing that you ever could imagine. And I mean, it's just, it's life in itself is just interesting. So it's funny that, because we started talking about evolution. We left off on talking about evolution and how, when we think about evolving, right, we think about going up. We think about upward mobility, motion, like going further or closer to or upward, right? And sometimes it's like evolution sometimes there's not always one way. And spirituality isn't always one way. Like, we think spirituality sometimes is like, oh, it's all these great things and all this positive affirmations and feeding yourself well and self-care and all of these things and crystals and harmony and it's like that's part of it. That's part of it. But there's also an entirely other side that looks way different than you would have ever imagined, right?
A lot of people don't even see that though until they have their awakening. Like, well, no, I won't even say that, because when you first awaken, it's like, my mind has been blown. I've been lied to my whole life. I see life totally different. Nothing can touch me, or at least that was my experience. And then came a tower was like, I don't like this part. Like, I don't like this part at all. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Absolutely same. Like, okay, for me, I feel like when I was at my most spiritual, at my most awakened, when I was doing like my most due diligence to like stay connected to myself and the universe and the Most High, and like I put in all that work and effort, like I thought that everything that I did and everything that I touched would be a blessing and would be a positive in my life, right? And at that moment when I was doing all that work and I was healing myself and I was meditating, I kid you not, I was meditating 2 hours a day, an hour in the morning, an hour at night, and I was vegan for I think that was the first time I went vegan. And I was working hard, I was making a lot of money. I was like, life was just, I was good. Like, I felt good about myself. And during that time, that's when I had one of my most tower moments. Like, when I had one of my most, like, one of the hardest lessons I think I've ever had to learn, like in this experience so far. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, how is it that I'm doing all this work? How is it that I'm putting in all this effort? How is it that I'm making myself the person, the version of myself? I'm ascending myself. I'm evolving. I'm evolving myself. So universe is gonna show me, the Most High is gonna show me, God, the divine, whatever, is gonna show me that my hard work is paying off and I'm gonna be where I want to be, right? No, that is not how that happened. Something happened in my life and everything went to shit.
Is
like,
this something that I'm thinking?
It shook. That bitch was shaking the table. We was talking about, we was saying we was gonna shake some shit up, and the table was shaking. Let's just say that. And after that, it really shook me to my core, And so to me, coming out of that was like, I didn't know what the fuck. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to go. I didn't know. It literally flipped my entire existence upside down. And I had to start from zero. And at that point, you can be like, why God? Why me? Right? Like, what the hell? Why I wasn't doing anything wrong and yada, yada, yada. Like, why at this moment, asking yourself why, questioning yourself. You worked so hard to learn how to trust yourself, learn so hard how to trust the process. You work so hard to
trust the universe and the Most High.
Exactly. Trust the universe and just have faith in everything and be faithful. Right. Be a faithful servant.
Right.
Right. For those for the biblical terminology.
Right. Right.
And it's like, what the fuck am I doing this for? Like, what? Like, so following, like, going through something like that, and then having to rebuild and not knowing how to rebuild, and then losing faith and losing trust in the universe and God and yourself, and questioning yourself and questioning your self-love and all of that stuff. Like, you can be going through an ascension process, right? Evolving in your evolution, going toward, going north, going forward or whatever. And life and the universe will say, nope, something has to happen right now to shake you up. Because this isn't enough. Like, you haven't learned enough yet. There's still more work to be done. And it's basically like, humble your ass, humble yourself. You know what I mean? Like, are you going to give gratitude now still? Are you still going to be grateful? Are you still going to, you know what I mean? Are you still going to give everything you've given? Or are you know what I mean? And that is hard. That's fucking hard. Because we can sit here and say, yeah, I'm still going to give grace. I'm still going to be grateful. You might not.
Right. At some point,
I did it.
At some point, you do reach. Right. But at some point, you do reach that. At some point, I feel like you do, like, after you've gone through so many tower moments, or I don't even know. It's funny that we're talking about this, because I literally talked about this on my solo segment today. And it also ties
into, I haven't even gotten a chance to watch it yet.
And it also ties into our first episode too, like how we're talking about lessons and cycles and everything. But the main thing that I wanted to say is that when you're ascending, you also go through a tower moment. Like, you get shaken because maybe, and I talked about this too, there's a such thing as toxic positivity, where you just want to stand in the light, which is what we talked about in the first episode. Like, everything cannot be light. You have to learn how to build a solid, balanced foundation. And if you're just building off of bliss and more bliss and more bliss and more bliss, it's gonna crumble. As soon as you get hit with something that's dark, you ain't gonna know how to act or how to react or how to rebuild or nothing. So you're constantly gonna be tested. Your strength is gonna be tested. Your faith is gonna be tested. But if you can't pass the test, you're not ready to go to the next. You're not ready to go to the next level, and the next level might just be a side step to the same. It might be the same thing, part 2, like this episode. Which is it's a little deeper though. Like, I feel like the first episode was like, it was like dipping your toe in the water. And now here we're talking about, I feel like we talked a lot on light and balance and making sure to do this with the full moon. And now we're talking about, so now that you hear, even the timing, it's nighttime right now when we're doing this, even the timing, you have to address the shadow. You have to be willing to show up in the shadows as much as you're willing to show up in the lights.
Absolutely.
If you can't, you're unbalanced, boo. And as soon as you hit a tower, you ain't gonna know what to do. And so that's part of evolution. That's part of ascension. If you can't survive, I almost said something. Basically, we want you to be just as comfortable in the shadow as you are in the light. There's a lot of things that happen in the dark. A newborn child spends 9 months at most in a womb before it is ready to be brought out into the light. A lot of growth happens in the shadow. There's just no way to deny it. And I know for a fact that there's either people that we're speaking to that are just now awakening, or have gone through an awakening and are being hit with a tower, or something that's like, why? Because it was brought up in my solo and it's being brought up right now. Wow. So there's something happening with the people that we're connecting with, who are on the same frequency as us, or who are finding us, that are like, looking for answers or getting ready to go through something that's like, here's a little bit of equipment. We can't hold your hand through it, but we can tell you it can be okay if you choose to just acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And that's the first step. Acknowledge it before you can do anything else about it. Don't try to ignore it, because it's not going to go away. It's going to follow you.
Yep. Or sidestep it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yep. And God, I had something that I wanted to say. I just had a brain fart.
Look, I got a notepad because that happened in our first episode. I was like, dang, there was so much she said I wanted to respond to.
Oh, you want to write it? That's a good idea. I should probably do that. I'm gonna start doing that. That's a really good idea.
We're still learning.
But God, I'm trying to remember.
Darkness. We're talking about darkness.
We're talking about darkness. Yeah. And you were saying how God damn it.
No.
Brain fart. Okay. It'll come back to me. It'll come back.
We were just basically talking about how like a lot happens in the dark. A lot of growth happens in the shadow space. Like if it's all bliss, it's kind of like what I was telling our younger brother. Well, my younger brother, he's your older brother. It's kind of like what I was telling him, like, and I don't know if she's going to watch this, but before he got married, I was like, are you sure? Because it was kind of a quick engagement marriage, you know, like it was really quick. And so I was like, it's easy to love somebody when everything is all good, but have you guys seen each other's bad sides? It's the same thing. It's easy to be in the spiritual community when everything is all good, but how are you going to react when things go left or that are not just all love and light? How are you going to react when you're being tested? Because you cannot you can't move forward. You can't move anywhere until you are tested to see, like, are you even ready to go there? Like, you think you about to just automatically placed in a higher position or anything.
Right. You think it's lollipops and bubble gum and fairy dust?
And yes, you have to prove, just like if you go for a job interview, you're going to get tested. Like, okay, we have questions before we just take you on. Like, how do we know that you're qualified? There's a process, and people want to believe that it's all love and light, and that's not spirituality. That is toxic positivity. Love and light is great, but it is not progressive.
And you know what it is? I remember what I wanted to say. You were talking about the child in the womb and how, you know, they're in darkness for, 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
Or when you plant a seed before it grows, it's in darkness for all that time before you even see it bloom. And, bamboo doesn't shoot up for 7 years. You put bamboo in it, and it takes 7 years before you even see it start to pop up. So it's like, and you also were saying how, it's basically what I got from what you were saying is like, and we hear this all the time, it's kind of cliche, but it's like, it's not necessarily what is happening in life, it's how you react to it.
Exactly.
And when you react in a way we're human and we have emotions. So we're going to react how we are either trained or programmed or how we've learned to change, react to whatever. And in certain instances, it's like for instance, with the dark, with the shadow, a lot of people I've noticed run from spirituality when it gets a little darker, like, or something that they don't understand. And I feel like with this information, it's all about knowledge and information and understanding. It's also like spiritual and faith-based as well, because, but also too, here, you're supposed to ask questions. You're supposed to want to dig further, but it's like in some instances, the further you dig, the deeper you go, the darker it gets.
Yeah, the scarier it gets.
Exactly. And it's not, and that's what you were talking about, that toxic positivity, because it's like, it's basically not the, I don't even know how to explain it.
It's not surface level.
It's not the junk food that I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's not junk food. It's real health food.
Right.
It's real green.
And it ain't going to taste good all the time.
Over here. It's kale, unseasoned.
Yeah. It ain't going to taste good all the time.
Season it with some good old Dr. Sebi spices, but like, you're not really getting fluff. And I feel like it's portrayed that way. Like, oh, I'm spiritual. I sit in nature all day. And it's a lot of hard work. It is
It's
a
an
lot of hard
acquired,
work.
if we're talking in terms of food, like how you were saying, it's not junk food. It's an acquired taste. It's kind of like how everybody's like, everybody don't want a salad. Okay, that's fine. It's better for you than the other snack that you're thinking about, or the other meal you might be thinking about having. And it is an acquired taste. Sometimes you're gonna have to have a little salad. Like, you don't have to have it all the time, every single day, or you start to find ways to make the salad more palatable for yourself, but only after experimenting with different things that complement the salad. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like I just, girl, I'm
No,
taking
I
notes
get what
still.
you're saying. I get what you, but you can't put no hot Cheeto dressing on it,
No,
though,
but
because
that's why I said,
that's gonna defeat the purpose.
but that's why
Like,
I said you have to experiment with things that go with it, that will
yeah,
complement it. Ain't no hot Cheetos about to complement a salad. Like, no matter how much you try to dress that up with a hot Cheeto, it's gonna be nasty as hell. You gotta find different like balsamic vinaigrettes and things like that. Make your own
I'm
avocado
mad. This is the
dressing.
correlation.
You know what I mean? Like, you
I'm
find
so
ways to make it palatable. If you really about it,
yeah.
you about to figure out how to make this, make it through, or how to make it work for you, or how to make yourself just become one with it. You know it's healthier for you, you know it's
Mhm.
better for you. But some people, I mean, everybody ain't gonna go that deep. Everybody don't want to go to the shadow. A lot of people are profiting off of just being love and light, and that's great.
Love and light, yeah.
But
Mhm.
I just feel like, nah, we ain't built for that. Nothing about us, nothing about our ancestors is love and light. We've had a very crazy ride from being at the top to being brought all the way low and rising back up. So therefore, you have to look at that and know that if your ancestors were able to make it through all that, and you're here today as a result, you owe it to them to do the work to make sure that we never, ever, ever go back to a space of just being, what is the word? I'm not gullible. I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, but don't be so
Oh, that's
gullible.
no.
Don't
It's
be,
crazy that you use that naive.
yeah,
Is that the word?
it's somewhere up in that vicinity of
Mm-hmm.
words. Gullible, naive, to the point of trusting all of things that look so shiny and new. Nah, that's
Like the
not
light.
right. That's not where growth happens. Growth happens. Say it, sis, because I feel like
I'm
you're gonna,
sorry. I just had a moment.
no,
Like,
say it, say it.
okay, because we're talking about like the light, right? And it's like everything that glitter ain't gold, and we're so attracted to the light, right? The
Mm-hmm.
white, the light, the bright, and a lot of negative shit comes from there. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of real shit that sound good is presented good, but it's really not good. Like, and you were talking about our ancestors and like being naive. It's funny because Jay and I were just having that conversation. Like, I was asking him, I was like, what the hell did we do to end up in the position that we was in? Like, because we were talking about karma. It was after our podcast because we were talking about, karma and karmic debts having to be paid by, if it's not by you, it's by somebody else in your
Right.
lineage or some way, somehow, your future self, your past self, whatever. And I'm like, what the did we do, right? Because I haven't done enough information. And there's only so much information that's like you have to basically look for it, right? You have to really like it'll find you when you're on the path towards it, right? But it's like, where's the information that says how we got here? Because it's like, yeah, we know about the Greeks in ancient Rome. We know about that. We know about the Moors, civilizing